Good morning, everyone, from my side as well. It's great to have you all here. My role is to just quickly talk you through NVT's strategy to conserve Nature's Valley. And then after that, our program managers are going to give you a little bit more information about each of our programs. So what we do, our core business is to conserve the ecological integrity of Nature's Valley and its surrounds. We see that as our core business. So everything we do, we always measure against that. So that's all the sort of important ecological systems and processes and services that we as humans get from nature. And in our work, we always try and involve as many partners and stakeholders as possible. Our obvious partners include other conservation organizations like Sand Parks, who we work very closely with, also Cape Nature, Bito, Play Tourism. Those are the ones that we work the closest with, but then also other NGOs in the area. I see some of our partners are here, welcome. And yeah, just a variety of different stakeholders, tertiary institutions, universities, national universities, a number of them, as well as international universities, and communities. Our focus is on Nature's Valley, as you'll see, but we're also very involved in Kirtland and Covey, which is also sort of part of the broader area. So where we work, our main focus is on Nature's Valley itself, but as you will hear in the subsequent presentations, we cannot conserve Nature's Valley effectively by just focusing on Nature's Valley, because a lot of the challenges that we are faced with here in Nature's Valley actually starts in other areas. For example, we see pollution in our ocean, but all of that happens upstream. So that's why we cannot just look at Nature's Valley. So our sort of secondary focus is on the sort of Bito area, especially when it comes to things like catchments and all our different integrated systems, but also because of the nature of our work, a lot of the work that we do is also applicable to other areas in the garden route, and more we are also starting to make a contribution not only on a national level but also on an international level, specifically with the work we do in our marine and coastal program, the work we do in rivers and estuaries, as well as our forest work. Then, in terms of our model, so we still focus on the sort of core aspects that we have been focusing on for the last 25 years. So conservation, research, awareness and education, as well as our community work. But over the last couple of years, we've been sort of shifting away from just focusing on ecological aspects to more social ecological aspects. In other words, we're also looking at the human dimensions in conservation, because a lot of the challenges and threats to local wildlife and biodiversity is actually caused by humans. So for us, it makes a lot of sense to also look at that. And then also, we've been doing a lot of sort of education work over the last 25 years, but again, we've been gradually moving more towards behavioral change, so it's still doing awareness and education, but as part of a broader process to work towards behavioral change, because that is the only way that we can make our interventions more sustainable in the long term. Then our approach, so at NVT we follow what we call a whole system approach to community-based conservation. A system in the sense that we look at all the different systems within our area. There's 6 of them, so your marine, coastal, river, estuary, fynbos and forest, and that's also linked to some of our programs. And we not only focus on the systems in isolation, but also the kind of connections between systems, because we sort of know that estuaries, for example, are very important for marine fish species as a breeding ground. And we know that the highest insect diversity are typically found on forest edges next to fynbos. So it's important to not only look at systems in isolation, but like all the systems together, and the linkages between the system. And as I mentioned before, also looking at the human dimensions, and we do that specifically in our urban ecology program. And so the Urban Conservancy is one of the projects there, as well as in our behavioral change program, which is kind of a combination of the awareness and education we did in the past, but like I said, from a different perspective. And it's specifically aimed at sort of changing behavior, you know, moving people away from kind of destructive behaviors towards nature to more pro-environmental sort of behaviors. Then on the ground conservation, or conservation in action, is also important to us. So we're very much involved in direct habitat restoration, species protection, and you will pick up elements of that in all our programs. So that's something we very much applied. Even the research we do is very applied. So it's very much sort of focused on kind of understanding, you know, these different systems and species so that we can conserve them in a more effective manner. We also actively manage threats, like, for example, invasive species. And again, that's something that you can see across most of our programs. So you're likely to see Giorgio running around the valley, spraying sword ferns, or taking out blackwoods or black wattles and things like that. Then I think another very key component of our work is our ecological monitoring and our research. So we have several long-term ecological monitoring programs. Our two longest running programs is our Urban Conservancy project, or Urban Ecology program, and also our Rivers and Estuaries program. And there our main focus is on the Groot River and also the Salt River. And for both systems, like for example in the Groot River, we have data sets that are 15 to 20 years old. So we're able to sort of monitor long-term trends and changes within these systems. And then another key component of our work is we always try in everything that we do to make it based on science, you know, to collect data, to analyze the data, make sure that when we take decisions about sort of intervening, that it's sort of based on very concrete and solid science. Then our awareness in education, I think it was about 2 years ago, we said to ourselves we don't want to just be involved or engage with our communities. We actually want to make a difference in our communities. Back then we conducted quite a bit of research to understand the sort of needs and assets and well-being in our 3 local communities that I mentioned earlier. And out of that stemmed our behavioral change program. And Sandra will tell you a little bit more about that. And then finally, you know, just to link it back to community-based conservation, so basically in everything that we do, we always try and produce both positive social outcomes as well as environmental outcomes. In other words, the occurrence of alien invasive species in our catchments, our river systems, is quite a big challenge for us. So we tackle that hands-on by removing those trees. And in the Salt River, for example, at the end of last year, we already removed like over 10,000, you know, black wattles and blue gums and so on in that system. And in that process, we also create jobs for local people. So it has a very clear sort of environmental and social outcomes as well. So who does all the work? So we're a team of 8 core members. That's our permanent staff. Myself and Lauren, who you will hear later, is our program manager for our Rivers and Estuaries program. We have Dr. Rudy Swart, who is the program manager for our forest program. Giorgio Lombardi, who is the program manager for our urban ecology program. And at the moment, he's also assisting with the coordination of the interns. Dr. Sandra Duplessis, who is managing our behavioral change program. And then finally, Dr. Alejandra Vargas, who is the manager for our marine and coastal program. So I think as a sort of fairly small organization, we're very fortunate to have all of these very high level scientists working with and for us. And of course, we can't do the work ourselves. We're supported by our intern program. So every year we get sort of around 20 or so interns in. Some of them are international. They're from across the world. And they come and spend sort of 3 to 6 months, sometimes a bit longer, depending if they're a postgraduate student. They sometimes come for a year. And then in the last couple of years, we've also taken on or given the opportunity to a few sort of shorter term interns. Typically people that are studying in one of the environmental disciplines that wants to just come and get a bit of kind of hands-on conservation experience. So we've taken them in. So yeah, last year, for example, we took in 26 interns and students, and this year I think we're on 24 so far. But we are expecting quite a big group to come and work on baboons during our winter time. And then the program itself is structured. So every week we have a different focus. So week 1 is typically marine and coastal. Week 2 is forest and so on. And then within that week, we normally get together as a team to plan our week. Tuesdays are research days. So if it's, for example, a marine week, the interns will go out with Alejandra to do boat-based surveys, or with Rudy to do vegetation monitoring or whatever. Wednesdays are our teaching days, so we very much focus on the transferring of knowledge and skills that young and upcoming scientists need, to make them more suitable for the field of conservation and other disciplines. Thursdays are our community days, so every Thursday we work in one of our communities, and then Fridays are fun days. So if it's a rivers and estuaries week, they may go and snorkel and look for seahorses in the Keerbooms Lagoon, or Rudy will teach them how to climb trees or something like that. So things like that. And then publications, we not only do research, we also very open to the idea of kind of sharing this knowledge. So 3 years ago we started our own scientific journal for a number of reasons, and since then we've made quite a few contributions around sort of understanding baboons, birds, bushbucks, alien invasive plants, all the work that we did on the Salt River, insect-related work, and we are in the process of finalizing our 3rd issue, and in this issue there will be 3 additional papers about baboons, also black stinkwood, a study that Rudy did, he will mention that. The model we developed, the community-based conservation model we recently developed, dung beetles, and so on and so forth. Another sort of output that we're proud of is the book that we published on Nature's Valley. In there, we sort of look at all the biophysical aspects as well as the history and how NVT evolved over the years. And with that, we've also produced a number of sort of research reports and so on that's available to anyone. Then, finally, in preparation for this community engagement event, we conducted a small survey. 58 people participated in the survey, so it's about 12% of the people that are on Valley Chat, and according to that, about 95% of people are fully aware of NVT and the work we do. Then most of them, more than 70%, have also benefited directly from the work we do, from our talks, our engagements with the community, supporting owners here with alien invasives and so on. When we asked them how often they want updates from our site, most of them said quarterly, and it also looks like most of them prefer our WhatsApp group, NVT Connect. So we will definitely continue posting updates on that, as well as in combination with annual written reports, on the work we do. And that's basically it from my side. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the presentations.
Before we go,